Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome to Year 3 of the 17 Verses podcast. I'm your host, Maher Haq. In this podcast, we take a small selection from the Quran every day and recite it to you in plain English, so you can get a small slice of God's Word while you go about your day. By averaging 17 verses per day, we're able to break the Quran down into manageable pieces and finish it in 1 year. If you enjoyed the podcast, please help spread the word. Tell your friends and family, subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher, and write us a review. Today's selection is from Surah 37, As-Safat, or Those Ranged in Ranks, verses 99 through 113. These verses continue the story of Prophet Abraham and tell of the time when he was asked to sacrifice his only son as a test of faith. Tafsir for this selection compares the Muslim version of this story with the Jewish-Christian version. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Abraham said, I am going to take refuge with my Lord. He will surely guide me. O Lord, grant me a righteous son. So we gave him the good news of a gentle son. When he reached the age to work with him, Abraham said to Ishmael, O my son, I have seen a vision that I should offer you as a sacrifice. Now tell me, what is your view? Ishmael replied, O my father, do as you are commanded. You will find me, if Allah so wills, to be of the patient. And when they both submitted to Allah, and Abraham laid down his son prostrate upon his forehead for sacrifice, we called out to him, O Abraham, stop! You have fulfilled your vision. Thus do we reward the righteous. That was indeed a manifest test. We ransomed his son for a great sacrifice, and we left his good name among the later generations. Salutations to Abraham. Thus do we reward the righteous. Surely he was one of the believing devotees. We gave him the good news of Isaac, a prophet, one of the righteous. We blessed him and Isaac both. Among their progeny there are some who are righteous, and some who are clearly doing wrong to their own souls. Ameen. Now, concerning the Muslim version of this story, which you just heard, as compared to the Christian-Jewish tradition in the Old Testament, quote, the Jewish tradition, in order to glorify the younger branch of the family, descended from Isaac, ancestor of the Jews, as opposed to the elder branch descended from Ishmael, ancestor of the Arabs, refers this story of sacrifice to Isaac, as told in Genesis chapter 22, verses 1 through 18. Now, Isaac was born when Abraham was 100 years old, as told in Genesis chapter 21, verse 5, while Ishmael was born to Abraham when Abraham was 86 years old, as told in Genesis chapter 16, verse 6. Ishmael was therefore 14 years older than Isaac. During his first 14 years, Ishmael was the only son of Abraham. At no time was Isaac the only son of Abraham. Yet in speaking of the sacrifice, the Old Testament says in Genesis chapter 22, verse 2, And he said, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and get thee into the land of Moriah, and offer him there for a burnt offering. This slip shows at any rate which was the older version, and how it was overlaid like the present Jewish records in the interests of a tribal religion. The land of Moriah is not clear. It was 3 days' journey from Abraham's place, as told in Genesis chapter 22, verse 4. There is less warrant for identifying it with the hill of Moriah on which Jerusalem was afterwards built than with the hill of Marwa, which is identified with the Arab tradition about Ishmael. Unquote. Thank you. This concludes today's episode of the 17 Verses podcast. I hope that this selection helps increase your understanding of the Holy Quran just a little bit. If you like the podcast, you can subscribe in iTunes or Stitcher and write us a review. Or you can grab the RSS feed and put it into your own podcast app. The show notes, including a text version of this episode, can be found by going to 17verses.com. That's the numbers 17, VERSES.com. Thank you, and be well.